Welcome, sleepy soul. I'll be your storyteller tonight, guiding you gently toward deep, peaceful rest. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime tales. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is, and if there's a story you'd like next, I'd love to hear it. I'm not the kind of person who scares easily. I work night shifts at a hospital. I've walked through silent wards at 3 a.m. I've heard families cry. I've seen last breaths. Real life has already shown me enough to make ghost stories feel small. That's why, when my friends suggested a quiet weekend in the mountains, I agreed without hesitation. I thought the worst thing we'd face would be bad cell service or burnt marshmallows. I had no idea how wrong I was. There were 4 of us: Mira, Zara, Kainat, and me. We'd all been drowning in work lately and needed a break that wasn't just scrolling on the couch. Kainat found the cabin online. The price was low, the reviews looked decent, and the pictures showed a cozy wooden cottage surrounded by pines. She booked it instantly. We reached the mountains just before sunset. Cold mist curled between the trees like slow-moving smoke, and the gravel road crunched under the tires in a way that felt too loud. I remember checking the booking confirmation again, just to be sure we were on the right path. The cabin was supposed to be isolated, peaceful, zero noise pollution, one review bragged. When we pulled up the driveway, the first thing we noticed was the light. The cabin's porch light was already on. "That's nice," Zara said. "Maybe the owner left it for us." But the owner had messaged earlier saying he wouldn't be at the property at all, just to use the lockbox key and let ourselves in. The cabin looked exactly like the photos. Wooden siding, small porch, big windows. Nothing threatening, but something about the glowing light made my stomach pinch tight. It felt less like a welcome and more like an open eye watching us arrive. Inside, everything looked clean enough. Rugs, a stone fireplace, for beds pushed against the walls. But there was no welcome note, no check-in instructions, no Wi-Fi password. Just silence, and a faint smell of something I still can't describe. Not rot, not dampness, just wrong, like cold breath on skin. "I'll text the owner," Kainat said, but her phone had 1 bar. Mine had none. We unpacked, lit the fireplace, made noodles. For a while it felt almost normal. We talked, laughed, played some old music on a Bluetooth speaker. The mountains outside were pitch black, the kind of darkness where headlights get swallowed. Around 11 p.m. the wind picked up. It rattled the windows and made the trees groan. We all moved closer to the fire without realizing it. And then I heard it, a creak, slow, deliberate, from above us. I stared at the ceiling. "Did you guys hear that?" The other girls froze, because we all knew the cabin didn't have a second floor. "Maybe it's the wood expanding," Zara whispered, "but wood doesn't walk." The sound came again, this time sharper. A clear, heavy step dragging across the boards overhead. Mira covered her mouth with both hands. "There's someone up there." We grabbed our phones, our jackets, anything we could reach. But when we rushed to the front door, something stopped us cold. The deadbolt was changed. Not locked, changed. This wasn't a rented cabin door. The owner had described a keypad lock. This door had a thick metal bolt installed from the outside so that whoever was inside couldn't get out. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. My breath fogged the air. The cabin was suddenly colder, as if someone had opened a window upstairs. Another creak from above. Heavier, slower, like someone leaning their weight over our heads. "We need to get out," Zara whispered. "Through a window, anything." But every window latch was sealed with screws. Thick, industrial screws that weren't there in any of the booking photos. It wasn't a rental cabin anymore. It was a trap. We backed up into the living room, huddled together, listening. The steps grew louder, pacing directly above us. The ceiling seemed to tremble under the weight. Mira started crying silently. Kainat tried the back door, it didn't even have a handle. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. The fire flickered, then died all at once, like someone had cupped a hand over the flames. Darkness swallowed the room. That's when the footsteps stopped. Silence. Thick. Absolute. I don't know how long we stood there, seconds or minutes. Then a new sound crawled through the cabin. A slow inhale. From the ceiling. As if something was bending down to sniff us through the boards. "Please," Zara whispered. "Please go away." The inhale became a shuddering growl. Low, wet, too close. I pulled the girls with me into the corner, beside the fireplace. It was the only blind spot. I don't know why I chose it. Some instinct of a terrified animal, maybe. The ceiling above us creaked again, this time right above the living room. Something was crouching, waiting, listening. The cabin felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were pressing inward. Then, the most awful sound of the night. A step, not from above, but from the hallway. Inside, downstairs. Mira gasped. But when we looked, the hallway was empty. Yet the footsteps kept coming. Slow, shuffling, moving toward the living room even though nothing visible walked. I saw the rug drag as if something heavy brushed across it. I saw dust lift from the floorboards like breath. And the smell, the same wrong, cold smell, flooded the room. I wanted to scream. My throat wouldn't work. The invisible footsteps stopped just a few feet from us. Then they turned, as if the thing was facing us, watching us, waiting for us to move. We didn't. We stayed frozen until dawn, until the first thin light crept through the windows. Then suddenly, all at once, the tension in the cabin released, like whatever had been inside simply dissolved. The air warmed, the smell vanished, and that's when we heard a car pulling up outside. The owner, a middle-aged man, stepped out, confused by the sight of us shaking on the floor, our eyes red from crying. "What are you doing inside?" he asked. We booked the cabin," Kynat stammered. "Through your listing." He frowned. "I don't rent this place anymore. It's been empty since September. I haven't stepped foot in it for weeks." I felt the last bit of warmth drain from me, because as he walked inside, he looked around, confused. "There's no power," he said. "The lines were cut by the storm last month. Nothing in here should be on." But the light had been on when we arrived. The bolt on the door? He swore he never installed it. And the ceiling? He tapped it twice. "There's no attic," he said. "There's no upstairs at all." We didn't explain what we heard. We didn't have to, because as we gathered our bags and hurried out, I swear on everything, I heard one last sound behind us. A single heavy step, and whoever made it never stopped watching. I always considered myself the rational one in our group, level-headed, practical, the friend everyone relied on to make sense of chaos. My name is Zara, and last summer, my 3 closest friends, Maya, Aisha, and Nita, and I rented a small villa along the coast for a long-awaited girls' trip. Sun, sand, and salty air. Nothing fancy, just a quiet escape from the city. The villa was beautiful, whitewashed walls, blue shutters, large windows framing the endless ocean, and a terrace that overlooked the beach. We arrived late afternoon, unpacked, and immediately took to exploring. Barefoot, toes sinking into the sand, the wind tangling our hair, we snapped photos like maniacs, trying to capture everything. The sunsets, the cocktails, the laughter. It wasn't until the first night, as we crowded around my phone to look at our group selfie, that I noticed it. A tall figure appeared behind us in the photo. Tall, shadowy, faceless, standing just at the edge of the frame. I laughed. "What the hell? Who's that?" Maya leaned over my shoulder. "Probably someone walked past while you took the picture." But no, we checked the villa. No one. Windows were locked. No lights on outside. The terrace was empty. "It's probably a glitch," I said, trying to calm the tiny prickle crawling up my spine. We deleted the photo and laughed it off. Over the next few days, though, it happened again. Every picture we took, whether a casual selfie, a snap of our drinks, or the sunset behind us, there he was, always tall, always shadowy, always behind us, but no one else ever saw him in person. By the third night, our laughter had faded. Unease had replaced it. "This is creepy," Aisha muttered, scrolling through the camera roll. "It's like he's watching." I tried to reassure them, but late that night, I woke to something I couldn't explain. The room was dark, the ceiling fan casting slow, hypnotic shadows. I felt the floor beneath the bed crunch. My eyes snapped open. Sand. Fine grains scattered across the tiles. Footsteps leading from the terrace into the room. And then, a wet footprint just beside the bed. Big, elongated, perfectly formed. My heart froze. "No way," I whispered, crawling toward the corner. The balcony door was locked. Windows sealed. No one could have come inside. That night, shaking, I set up the camera on the dresser, aiming it at the bed and the doorway. My friends were asleep. Couldn't ignore it. The footage started normally. Me tossing in my blanket, the fan whirring softly. Then, at 2:13 a.m., movement. There he was, tall, faceless, shadow dark, standing inches behind me. I froze so hard I thought my body would lock. The camera caught him clearly, but I could feel nothing. No sound, no draft, no shift in air. Yet the presence pressed down on me, cold and suffocating. I didn't scream, couldn't. I watched him in silence until, at 2:17 a.m., he slowly receded toward the doorway. But he didn't leave the room. He vanished, as though he'd slipped into the walls themselves. Morning never felt so bright. I shook the footage in disbelief, showing the girls. Maya's hands shook. Nita's lips were white. Aisha just stared, wide-eyed, silent. "We have to leave," I said, and we packed, fast. Bags slung over shoulders, shoes half-tied, our villa abandoned. We drove back home, hearts pounding, shoving the incident into the corners of our minds, convincing ourselves it was a shared nightmare, a mass hallucination caused by too much sun and wine. For a few days, it seemed we were safe, until we looked at the photos we'd taken during the drive home. He was there, in the reflection of the rearview mirror, behind me in every single group shot taken at gas stations, restaurants, even a roadside diner. Always tall, always shadowed. Closer. We didn't sleep that night. I kept my phone under my pillow, lights on, doors locked. But the next morning, I opened the gallery again. He had appeared in a photo I'd taken of the kitchen at home. Standing behind me, panic settled over me like a wet, heavy blanket. I called Maya, Nita, and Aisha. "It's following us," I said. My voice cracked. "Every photo, every reflection." Aisha gasped. "I saw it too, in the bathroom mirror. Behind me, standing there. I swear I didn't move. It was relentless, in reflective surfaces. Mirrors, windows, even the polished black screen of my phone. He was there, closer, shadowed, observing. We started comparing photos from before the trip. No figure. During the trip, tall, faceless. After the trip, closer, more defined. Every image documenting his approach, as if counting down to something none of us wanted to witness. I started leaving the lights on at night. I tried moving, changing houses, but in every photo the figure found me. Always closer, always silent, always watching. The worst was the last photo I took, just 2 nights ago. I was alone, snapping a selfie to send to a friend. And there he was, almost shoulder to shoulder with me, taller than ever, a looming darkness in the corner of the frame. No face, no features, just a void. I can't describe the terror of realizing he is no longer behind me. He's beside me, watching, breathing, patient, waiting. I've stopped taking photos. My reflection has become unbearable. Even in the shiny black screen of my phone, I see him. Close now, too close. Some nights, I swear I feel his shadow fall over me when I move from room to room. Every mirror, every glass, every picture frame, he's there, creeping closer. And I know, in a way I cannot explain, that the villa, the sand, the seaside, it was just the beginning. I don't know how to stop him. I don't know if I can. And tonight, as I write this, my phone camera lies beside me. I dare not pick it up, because I know that if I do, he will be closer than ever. I still don't know how to explain what happened without feeling the air tighten around my throat. Maybe talking about it aloud will help, or maybe it'll just make the memories sharper. My name is Sana, and 2 months ago my friends, Iram and Neha, and I booked a countryside Airbnb for a quiet autumn getaway. We never imagined how close we came to disappearing completely. I was the one who found the listing, a beautiful farmhouse surrounded by rolling fields, soft golden light in every picture, and reviews that bordered on poetic. Host Lila is the sweetest person, one said. Feels like visiting family, another wrote. The price was low, too low, but we brushed that off as off-season luck. We left the city early in the morning and reached the countryside by dusk. The sun was melting behind the hills, staining everything in burnt orange. As we drove up the gravel driveway, the house looked just as perfect as the listing: white porch, ivy climbing the walls, a wind chime that flickered in the breeze. But Lila wasn't there. Instead, a man stepped out from behind the house, tall, smiling, wearing a faded sweater and carrying a toolbox. "You must be the girls," he said cheerfully. "Lila had to leave town last minute. I'm her brother. Name's Thomas." He wasn't mentioned in the listing, not once, but he spoke with such casual certainty that all three of us forced polite smiles. He carried our bags inside before we even agreed. The interior looked normal at first glance. Clean floors, fresh flowers, a bowl of fruit. But something felt restrained, like the house was trying too hard to appear lived in. The first thing that struck me was the silence. No hum of appliances, no ticking clock, just the faint whine of wind squeezing through old wood. The second thing I noticed were the closets. Every single closet door was nailed shut. Not locked, nailed. Long rusted nails hammered straight across the wood. When I asked about one of them, Thomas smiled too quickly. "Oh, old house issues," he said. "Lila keeps storage in there. Better not open anything." Then he turned away before I could ask more. That evening, we made tea, played cards, tried to shake off the weirdness. But every few minutes, we heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, even, measured. Thomas, just walking. No explanation. No destination. Once, I stepped out to use the bathroom and found him standing at the end of the hallway, staring at a wall as if listening to something behind it. I whispered his name. He didn't move, didn't blink. It was like he wasn't breathing. When he finally turned, the smile snapped back onto his face like a mask. "Everything okay?" I nodded, though my skin crawled. We locked our bedroom door that night, or tried to. The lock was broken. Iram pushed a chair against the handle. Neha kept her phone in her hand the entire time. "Why are the windows sealed?" Neha whispered, pointing at the thick wooden bars screwed into the frames. "For safety," Iram said half-heartedly. "Maybe it's an old farmhouse thing." But the screws were new, bright silver, recently installed. Around 2 a.m., I woke up thirsty. The room was cold, the kind of cold that makes your teeth ache. As I sat up, I heard footsteps outside our door. Slow, dragging footsteps. I held my breath. The door handle twitched. Just slightly, just enough. Then the footsteps moved away. When morning came, all of us pretended to be fine. We packed quickly, eager to check out. But as we loaded our bags into the car, Thomas appeared behind us like he had materialized from thin air. "Heading out so soon?" he asked, voice too soft. "We have plans," Iram lied. "We're leaving early." His smile dropped for a fraction of a second. A tiny fracture in the mask. The air suddenly felt heavier, like the sky had dropped lower. "Oh," he said, "but you haven't even seen the basement. Lila renovated it. Beautiful place." "No, thank you," I said quickly. His eyes lingered on me too long. That's when Neha's phone buzzed. A message from Lila. "Hi girls, just checking in. The key box is ready when you arrive. Let me know if you need help finding the house." Neha froze. When we arrive?" she whispered. "But we're already here." My stomach turned. I took the phone from her. The timestamp showed she sent the message that morning. Lila wasn't out of town. She wasn't even aware we had checked in. "Girls," I whispered, "we need to get in the car. Now." But before we could move, the phone buzzed again. "No one should be there. The house is locked. No one has access except me." Thomas was standing behind us, so still, so silent. His smile was gone. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said in a low voice. "Come inside. I'll explain." We ran. I don't even remember making the decision. My legs moved before my mind caught up. We sprinted toward the car, but Thomas was faster than he looked. I heard gravel shift behind us, his footsteps pounding closer. Neha fumbled with the keys, dropped them, screamed. I shoved her into the back seat, yanked the door shut, and slammed the lock down. Just as Thomas reached the window, he didn't scream or bang. He just leaned down slowly and looked at us with a dead, disappointed expression, as if we had ruined something he had waited a long time for. I reversed so fast the tires spat stones across the driveway. We drove straight to the nearest police station. We thought we'd be safe. We thought it was over. But when officers reached the property, the house was empty. Thomas was gone. We were gone, at least according to the footage. An officer pulled us aside, pale-faced. He showed us the timestamped security video from the barn facing the house. Inside the footage, we were standing outside the farmhouse, talking, laughing, moving normally. Then Thomas stepped into frame. He motioned for us to follow, and in the footage we did. One by one, we followed him toward the basement door. But that never happened. In reality, we had run. We had escaped. So how did the footage show us peacefully walking into the basement? "What's down there?" I asked. The officer swallowed hard. "Nothing, just dirt. The basement is unfinished." But his voice shook, because someone had etched 3 sets of scratch marks on the concrete floor. 3 sets of fingernail trails leading toward the dark corner of the room. And worst of all, a message carved beside them. "She let us out. We haven't heard from Thomas. We haven't heard from Lila." Sometimes, late at night, when my phone screen goes dark, I see a reflection behind me that isn't mine, and it's smiling. I never believed in the idea of bad places. I thought locations were just locations. Concrete, air, walls. Nothing more. If something terrible happened in a place, the horror came from people, not the place itself. But after what happened at that resort, I don't say that anymore. My name's Hania. Last summer, my college friends and I, Rida, Mariam, and Zoya, booked a cheap tropical getaway to celebrate finishing our exams. We wanted sun, beaches, fruity drinks, the usual nonsense you chase in your early 20s. The resort seemed perfect. Bright pools, palm trees, buffet breakfasts, and a room with a balcony that faced the ocean. If I sound too casual right now, it's because I'm trying hard not to think about the part that came after. It was our second night there, hot, humid, the kind of heat that sits on your skin like another layer. We'd had a little too much to drink, and none of us wanted to go to sleep yet. The pool bar had closed early because of staff shortages. So we wandered around the back of the resort looking for a vending machine. That's when Mariam noticed it. A metal door, half hidden behind a wall of tropical plants. Rusted edges, chipped paint, and a sign that had faded into almost nothing. "What do you think this is?" she asked. "Probably a storage shed," Rida shrugged. But the door wasn't locked. When Mariam pulled it open, hot stale air puffed out. Thick, heavy. It smelled like old linen and mold and something metallic under the surface. Inside was a concrete ramp slanting downward into darkness. Zoya laughed nervously. "Looks like a murder tunnel. Only one way to find out." Mariam grinned. "It should have been a red flag. It should have been the moment we turned around. But alcohol does something to your sense of judgment. Blurs the edges, quiets the warning voice. So we went in. I remember the temperature changing immediately. Outside it was sticky and hot. Inside it was cold enough that goosebumps rose along my arms. Our footsteps echoed down the narrow corridor. The walls were lined with pipes, some dripping, some groaning under pressure. We walked deeper, our phone flashlights bobbing through the gloom. "What is this place?" Rida whispered. We found out soon enough. Rusted carts sat abandoned along the walls, room service trolleys, cleaning carts, laundry bins. Some still had sheets in them, stained sheets, brownish streaks, reddish blotches. I told myself they were old rust marks. I didn't want to believe otherwise. Then we saw the scratches. Long, jagged claw marks dug into the concrete walls. Fingernail trails, deep enough for flakes of concrete to still litter the floor. My throat tightened. Someone did this? I whispered. No, Zoya said softly. Someone tried to get out. The silence that followed was heavy. The air felt wrong, too still, too stale, like the tunnel hadn't been opened in years. Then the lights came on. All at once. A long string of dim fluorescent tubes flickered to life overhead, buzzing, humming, drowning our phone lights in a sickly yellow glow. None of us touched a switch. No motion sensors were visible, but the lights knew we were there. Let's go back, Rita said immediately. Right now. We turned. At the far end of the tunnel, where darkness had been seconds ago, we saw movement. A shadow, long human-shaped, standing perfectly still. Then, a voice, soft, dragging, coming from the overhead speakers that crackled to life with a burst of static. Back to your rooms. The words were stretched, distorted, soaked with a kind of hollow authority that made my stomach twist. The shadow moved, not walked, ran, full sprint, straight toward us. We didn't scream at first. We were too frozen to even breathe. Then the sound hit us, the slap of bare feet on concrete, fast, frantic, getting closer. Go, Zoya yelled, shoving us forward. We bolted up the ramp, our footsteps sliding on the smooth floor. The tunnel air felt like ice slashing past my face. The running behind us grew louder, closer, so close I felt vibrations through the ground. I didn't dare look back. We burst out of the door, practically tripping over each other, and slammed it shut. Rita grabbed a pool chair and jammed it under the handle. All of us were gasping, shaking, staring at the door like something would burst through it at any second. But nothing happened. The resort lights glowed peacefully. Music drifted from the distant lobby. Everything looked normal. Too normal. When we tried to tell the staff what happened, they laughed it off. We don't have any tunnels under the resort, the manager insisted. You girls probably found the maintenance shed. We asked him to come see it. He said it was late. He said we were drunk. He said we must have been confused. The next morning, the door wasn't there. The plants were undisturbed. The wall was smooth. No metal frame. No hinge marks. No sign anything had ever been there. We saw it, I whispered. We all saw it. So stop talking about it. The manager snapped, suddenly cold. Enjoy your vacation. We tried. We really did. But that night, the knocking started. Came from beneath our floor. Wooden knocks. Slow. Rhythmic. For knocks. Always four. One for each of us. The first time, we all sat up at the same moment. Do you hear that? Zoya whispered. For knocks again. Coming from right beneath my bed. I felt the vibration through the mattress. Faint, but real. We pushed the beds aside. Nothing underneath except tile. The knocking continued. For knocks. Pause. For knocks. Pause. We slept with the lights on. We slept pressed together on one bed like children. We didn't talk about the tunnel anymore. On our final night, around 3 a.m., I felt someone sit on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped unmistakably. I held my breath. The room was silent. My friends were asleep. Then beside my ear, so close I felt the breath. Back to your rooms. I jerked upright. Nothing was there, but the mattress still bore the shape of someone sitting. We left before sunrise. You'd think the story ends there. It doesn't. We're back home now. Different cities, different apartments. But the knocking followed us. Some nights, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I hear it under my floorboards. For slow knocks. Sometimes, in hotel rooms, it comes from behind the headboard. Once, during an online call with the girls, all of us heard it at the same time. For knocks. Perfectly synchronized. As if something was knocking on all our floors at once. We tried to ignore it. Until last week. When Miriam vanished. The police say she packed a bag and left voluntarily. But her front door was open. Her phone was on the kitchen floor. And scratched into the wall behind her bed were 4 long marks. Just like the tunnel. At night, I still hear the knocking. And last night, I heard footsteps too. Running. getting closer. I've driven a lot of long roads in my life, but nothing has ever stayed with me the way that desert highway did. Even now, months later, the memory hits me like a wave of heat. Dry, suffocating, impossible to outrun. My name is Aisha, and last spring my friends Hiba, Kieran, and Fatima and I took a road trip through the Southwest. It was supposed to be a simple detour before a music festival, a scenic route through the desert. No traffic, no cities, just long stretches of open road. For the first few hours, it felt peaceful. The sky was so wide it made you feel small, and the air shimmered above the asphalt like a living thing. We were laughing, singing off-key to old songs, arguing about snacks. Then Fatima noticed it. "Do you guys see that white van behind us?" I turned in my seat. A plain white cargo van. No windows, no logos, no license plate. It kept its distance at first, maybe 100 meters back, just enough to not look suspicious unless you paid attention. And it stayed there, exactly there, no matter how slow or fast we went. Hiba, who was driving, frowned, probably just going the same direction. But after another half hour, the road forked. We went left. The van went left too. Another hour passed. Still behind us. Same distance. Same speed. That's when the mood shifted. Our laughter dried up. The heat inside the car suddenly felt heavier, thicker, like the sun was sitting directly on our shoulders. "Let's test it," I said quietly. "Hiba, speed up." She pressed the pedal. The engine hummed louder. Our speed climbed. 60, 70, 80. The white van sped up too, matching us perfectly. My stomach dropped. "Okay, slow down." Hiba eased off. The van slowed as if tethered to us by a rope. We drove in silence for a long time after that. Only the rumble of tires on cracked asphalt. Only the sun baking the world into a blinding sheet of gold. The air smelled like dust and hot metal, and the van followed. By the time we reached a gas station, our nerves were frayed. It was one of those places that barely qualified as a station. One pump, a faded awning, a tiny shop with a buzzing neon open sign that flickered like it was dying. We pulled in. The van continued past us. Then it stopped. Not close, not at a pump. Parked far across the dirt lot, facing us directly. Just watching. Hiba whispered, "I can't see the driver." None of us could. The windshield was dark, almost black. Not tinted, more like something was absorbing the light from inside. We went inside as a group. The store was dim and smelled like old coffee and sun-bleached plastic. A radio played static in the corner, and the cashier, a thin man with sunburned skin, didn't look up at first. When he finally lifted his eyes, he froze. "You girls came from Highway 19? "Yes," I said. "Why?" He nodded toward the far window, the one overlooking the dirt lot. The white van was still there. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You're not the first ones he follows." Cold slid down my spine. "Who is he?" The cashier didn't answer. He just stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck. "Get your gas. Don't stop again until you reach town. And whatever you do, don't let the van box you in." "What does that mean?" Kieran asked. He avoided our eyes. "Just go." We hurried out, fueled up faster than I thought humanly possible, and jumped back into the car. I could feel the heat of the desert rising off the ground in waves. My shirt stuck to my back. My heart pounded so loudly it muffled the engine. Hiba started the car. The van's headlights flicked on, pulled onto the road behind us. Again, following. The sun dipped lower. The sky darkened into a bruised purple. Shadows stretched long across the road like something reaching for us. By the time we reached the motel that night, my nerves were shot. The place was old. Paint peeling, doors warped, a buzzing sign that read vacancy in half-lit letters. But we were exhausted, and the nearest town was hours away. We parked. No van, no sound. We checked in, dragged our bags inside, shut the curtains and locked the door twice. For the first time, I thought maybe it was over. I was wrong. Around midnight, I woke to a low rumbling, a vibration that rattled the thin glass of our window. At first I thought it was a passing truck. Then I realized it wasn't passing. It was idling, right outside our window. Hiba sat up too. "Is that?" "Yes," I whispered. "It's the van." We crept to the curtain. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely grip the fabric. The girls huddled behind me. I pulled the curtain open an inch. The white van was there, 2 feet from our window, engine growling, headlights off, no driver visible, just darkness inside. The lights in our room flickered. The air suddenly felt colder, like the hum of the engine was draining the heat out of everything. Then something tapped the glass. Soft, deliberate. Tap, 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 tap. For taps. One for each of us. I stumbled back. "We're leaving. Now." We grabbed our keys, shoved our belongings into our bags, and ran out the door. The night air was icy against my skin. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might break through my ribs. But when we stepped outside, the van was gone. Just tire tracks in the dirt. Long, deep drag marks, as if something heavy had been pulled inside the van before it drove off. We didn't check to see what the marks led to. We didn't want to know. We threw our bags into the car and sped away, the desert swallowing the sound of our tires. None of us spoke for hours. When we finally reached the city, sunlight was breaking through the clouds, warm and soft. Nothing like the harsh desert sun. For a moment I felt safe. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Just a photo. My heart stopped. It was a picture of the motel window, taken from outside, from the exact height of a driver's seat. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw 4 figures sleeping inside. I'm not the kind of person who scares easily. I grew up with 3 older brothers who thought pranks were a form of love, so I learned early how to keep a straight face in the dark. But what happened in those woods last October, I can't shake it. I don't think I ever will. My name is Aisha, and that trip was supposed to be a simple girls' getaway, me, Zara, and Lena. 3 friends since university, finally taking a break from work, exams, and everything else life had been piling on. We planned a 2-day hiking trip deep in a forest reserve that people described as quiet, peaceful, untouched. They weren't lying about the untouched part. The place felt old, almost too old, the kind of silence that sits between the trees like it's listening to you. We arrived at the rental cottage just before sunset on the first day. It was small and tucked between tall pines, with wooden walls that smelled faintly of damp soil and something metallic, like rust. It had 2 beds pushed against opposite walls and a tiny window that barely let in enough light. We were setting our bags down when Zara joked, "Look, they thought we'd bring a ghost friend." I turned and saw what she meant immediately. 2 beds, but 3 pillows arranged neatly, the middle one placed perfectly between the other 2 as if someone had measured the spacing. It felt deliberate, too deliberate, but we laughed it off. Everything is funny in the daylight. We cooked noodles on a tiny stove and played cards until the sun dipped and the cottage turned cold. The forest outside swallowed the last of the light. By the time we crawled into bed, the air felt heavy, like the room itself had shrunk. I was drifting between thoughts when I heard it. A slow, steady exhale that didn't belong to any of us. It came from the floor between our beds, right where the 3rd pillow sat. At first, I thought it was Zara, but her breathing was soft, almost shaky. Lena slept near the window, her breath short and uneven. This one was deeper, slower, like a man quietly trying not to be heard. I froze. The room felt suddenly colder, the kind of cold that touches your spine first. The bed springs under me creaked as I tried not to move. "That's not you, right?" Zara whispered. Before I could answer, the breathing stopped. A moment later, something brushed against my ankle. Just a feather-light drag of air, but enough to make my lungs seize up. I pulled my feet in, heart pulsing in my throat. None of us slept after that. We turned on the flashlight from my phone and pointed it at the 3rd pillow. There, right across the fabric, were a few long strands of hair. Not ours. Dark. Coarse. At least 6 inches long. We didn't talk about it. Didn't know how to. Morning couldn't come fast enough. When sunlight finally seeped through the window cracks, Everything looked normal again, like the night had been a trick of the imagination. The forest hummed with birds. The air felt warmer. We convinced ourselves that maybe one of us had rolled over and shed hair without realizing. It was stupid reasoning, but it kept us sane. We hiked most of the day, trying not to think about the cottage. The woods were beautiful, but there was something off, small things. A tree carved with deep, fresh scratches. A patch of dirt that looked recently disturbed. A single muddy boot print that didn't belong to any of us. We returned just before sunset. The moment we stepped inside, my stomach tightened. The air was noticeably colder, not the natural kind. The kind that feels occupied. Zara stopped first. Aisha, look. The third pillow was dented, like someone's head had been resting on it. A deep, unmistakable impression, as if whoever used it was still warm minutes ago. None of us had been inside since morning. Lena backed toward the door. We're not sleeping here tonight. I swear I'll sleep outside before I stay here again. But the sun was already disappearing, and the trail back to the main lodge was at least an hour through dark forest. The rational part of our brains argued with the terrified part. And then Zara found the hatch. It was above the beds, a small square panel in the ceiling, slightly off-colored compared to the rest of the wood. Something none of us had noticed before. What if someone was in there? She whispered. None of us wanted to check. But fear makes you do strange things. Zara climbed onto the bed with my phone light pointing upward. She pushed the hatch open with a shaky hand. The smell hit first, damp, sour, like old sweat and rotting leaves. She gagged. I lifted the phone higher. The flashlight beam caught the inside of a crawl space. Narrow, dusty, and covered in footprints. Fresh footprints, made by bare human feet. My throat went dry. Lena stumbled backward, whispering prayers. Zara freaked out and slammed the hatch shut. That was enough. We packed everything in 2 minutes and sprinted through the woods with our flashlights bouncing wildly. The forest felt alive behind us, like something was following, matching our pace just out of sight. When we reached the main lodge, breathless, dirty, shaking, the host just stared at us. An older man with gray hair and a tired face. We rented the cottage, I said. The one near the Eastern Trail. Someone was inside it. Someone was sleeping there. His expression changed instantly, dread first, then anger, then something like guilt. You weren't supposed to use that cottage, he said quietly. I forgot to lock it. Lock it from who? Zara demanded. He rubbed his face and didn't look at us. His voice dropped. From him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Before we could ask anything else, he walked away, muttering that he would handle it. Whatever that meant. We slept in the main lodge that night, all three of us squished into one bed, too scared to close our eyes for long. Every time a floorboard creaked, we jolted awake. In the morning, the host avoided us. We packed up and left as quickly as we could. As we drove away, I glanced back toward the tree line. The cottage was barely visible from the road, just a shadow between the pines. But in the tiny attic window, I swear I saw someone standing there, watching us leave. Ahead, dark hair, motionless. And when the car turned a corner, the attic hatch door swung shut. We never went back. But sometimes, especially on nights when the house settles and would crack softly, I wake up thinking I hear breathing near my bed. Slow, steady, like someone lying on an invisible pillow right beside me. I've told myself for years that I'm not the paranoid type. I'm careful, rational. I analyze before I panic. But what happened at that lake cabin? It shattered all of that. There's no explanation I can accept, and I don't think I ever will. My name is Hina, and my friends and I, Sarah, Zoya, Rida, and Layla, had been planning this trip for months. A secluded cabin by Lake Timberwood, far enough from the road to feel isolated, close enough for a quick hike. We wanted to escape the city, the noise, the deadlines, everything. The day started normally, music blasting through the car, snacks littered across the back seat, windows down, wind whipping through our hair. We argued, laughed, sang horribly off-key. It was a perfect spring afternoon. Then Sarah snapped. It was nothing monumental, an argument about which path to take to the cabin. But for some reason, something in her just broke. She slammed her hands on the dashboard, yanked her jacket from the seat, and said she was going home. "I can't do this with you guys," she muttered, eyes blazing. "I'm going back. Alone." We tried to stop her, pleaded, joked, but she left. She stormed into the parking lot and vanished down the road, the dust swallowing her car within minutes. First, we were annoyed. She'd always had a temper. But as night fell and the cabin loomed ahead, that irritation turned into unease. The woods were darker than we remembered from the map. The lake reflected black ink, trees bending under a heavy wind that hadn't existed earlier. We lit a fire, cooked dinner, tried to distract ourselves. But every time someone mentioned Sarah, we flinched. Something felt off. Around 11, while we were splaying blankets near the dock, we saw headlights flicker through the trees. A car came to a stop on the dirt road leading to the cabin. My stomach dropped. It was Sarah. "Sorry, guys," she whispered as she stepped out. Her voice was soft, almost too quiet, and she avoided eye contact completely. Her hands were tucked inside her jacket pockets, shoulders hunched like she was carrying the weight of the world. At first, we laughed nervously, relief spilling out in waves. She had made it back. Everything was fine. It wasn't. Sarah refused to eat. She didn't talk. She just sat in silence on the dock, knees hugged to her chest, staring out at the lake as if it held all the answers. Zoya nudged me. "She's really off tonight," she murmured. "Have you seen her like this before?" "No," I whispered back. "Something's wrong." Hours passed. The wind carried strange sounds. Branches snapping where there shouldn't have been any movement. Water lapping against rocks too rhythmically, like it was timed. Every time I glanced at Sarah, her stillness pressed on my chest. Finally, exhaustion claimed us. We retreated to our beds, leaving Sarah on the dock. I peeked through the window before sleeping. She hadn't moved an inch. Her hair caught the moonlight. Her shoulders rose and fell in a slow, mechanical rhythm. Morning arrived sluggishly, sunlight sliding across the wooden floors. We gathered in the kitchen, rubbing our eyes, making weak coffee. That's when my phone pinged. Sarah's phone. A notification from her Instagram. A selfie, taken at home, hours ago. I froze. The caption read something like, "Chilling at home before heading out later." Her face was smiling. Cozy. Familiar. I turned slowly to the dock. Sarah was there. Our Sarah. Sitting cross-legged, hair falling over her shoulders, smiling at nothing in particular, as if she had waited all night just for this moment. Everything in me screamed. I wanted to bolt, to yell, to scream, but I couldn't. My legs felt glued to the floor. "Wait," Rida whispered. That's impossible." We circled her carefully, keeping our eyes locked. The closer we got, the more we noticed things that weren't right. Her smile, too slow, too deliberate. Her eyes wide and bright, but somehow empty. Her hands resting on her knees didn't shift, not even as the wind caught strands of her hair. "Sarah?" Layla's voice trembled. Are you okay?" The figure didn't answer, just smiled. A slow, calculating curve of lips. Waiting. We tried to speak again. Nothing. Not even a blink. I stepped closer, heart hammering in my chest. Tentatively, I reached for her shoulder and froze. The air felt wrong. Thick, metallic, like the smell of old blood clinging to my nose. A shadow stretched unnaturally behind her, though the sun was directly above. The shadow shifted independently, twitching, bending, moving in ways no human body should. Zoya let out a strangled scream. The figure's head turned slightly toward us, still smiling, still waiting. We bolted, back into the cabin, locking doors and windows. Every sound outside, a branch cracking, water splashing, made us jump. We didn't dare look. Not at the lake, not at the trees. Hours later, exhausted and still shaking, we finally dared to peek. The dock was empty. Sarah was gone. No footprints, no car. Nothing but the ripples on the water reflecting sunlight. We called her parents, her friends. No one had seen her. Her real phone, the one she carried before leaving the city, had pinged our number all night. It had been active at home. We left the cabin that day, our conversations minimal, our hearts heavy. None of us spoke about what we saw. None of us dared. Weeks later, I still can't sleep through the night. Shadows on the walls twist into shapes that resemble her. I check mirrors reflexively, as if hoping not to see the smile waiting behind me. And the thing that terrifies me most? I keep thinking, even now, she's still out there, waiting, watching, smiling. And when we finally notice, she won't be alone. I never imagined a vacation could haunt me for the rest of my life, but here I am, trying to make sense of the memory, piece by piece. My name is Zara, and last summer my friends, Aisha, Layla, and Mariam, and I went on a budget cruise along the Caribbean. It was supposed to be fun. Cocktails, sunbathing, dancing on the deck, nothing serious. We were young, carefree, laughing at the fact that we could barely afford the trip. The cruise ship was enormous for a budget line. Hallways curved endlessly, walls lined with brass fixtures dulled by years of polish, carpets patterned like they'd been designed to distract from dirt. Our cabin was small, cozy enough, and we dumped our bags inside, immediately running to the pool deck to soak in the warm sun. It wasn't until that first evening, when we returned to our hallway, that I noticed it. A door set slightly apart from the others. Gray, metallic, labeled in peeling letters. Staff only. Nothing unusual, right? Staff doors are everywhere on ships. But what unsettled me was the sound. Every night, without fail, we heard it. Soft, deliberate knocking from behind that door. Not the usual creaks of a ship at sea. Not the faint hum of engines or the chatter from the deck. Knocks. Slow. Insistent. First, we laughed it off. "It's just the staff moving around," Mariam said, rolling her eyes. But the knocking didn't match any staff schedule. It came late at night, after the bars had closed, when the hallways were empty and quiet. You could hear the ocean beyond the walls, waves crashing against the hull. But the knock, it was louder, sharper, almost urgent. The second night, after one too many cocktails, curiosity got the better of us. We pressed our ears to the door. The metal was cold against my skin, clammy in the humid hallway. I held my breath. Then I heard it. A woman's voice, barely audible, trembling. "Help me!" I recoiled. My heart hammered in my chest. The other girls froze behind me. "She's asking for help," Layla whispered. I tried telling myself it was a drunk hallucination, a product of too much rum and sun. But the fear didn't dissipate. The next day, we reported it to the staff. "Oh, that door," the receptionist said with a dismissive smile. "Staff only. Maintenance. Nothing to worry about." We insisted, described the voice, the knocking. They just shook their heads. "You're imagining things," one of them said, almost kindly. We didn't press further. Who wants to argue on vacation, right? But that night, lying in our cabin, I couldn't sleep. I imagined the woman behind that door, trapped, afraid, begging. The knocking continued intermittently, soft taps that echoed through the metal corridors. I told myself to ignore it, that if it were real, someone else would have noticed by now. Then, on the last night of the cruise, as passengers disembarked for the port city, we were heading down the main hallway to retrieve our luggage from the cabin when we noticed it. The door was cracked open. Not wide, just a fraction, like it had been nudged, forgotten ajar. My stomach churned. "Don't go there," I murmured, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. We approached slowly. The door groaned softly on its hinges. A smell hit me immediately. Metal, antiseptic, and something sour, almost like sweat that had baked in the sun for days. The space beyond was tiny, no more than a closet, but it was not a storage room. Inside, the floor was lined with cold metal. Straps were bolted to the ground, dark stains surrounding them, old yet unmistakably human. Scattered across the floor were ID badges, old crew staff IDs, some yellowed with age, some surprisingly recent. Each one bore a name, a photo, a date. Some were months old. Some had dates from just last year. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. "Oh my God," Miriam whispered. From the corner of the room, faint scratches marred the walls. One panel, slightly ajar, revealed a small vent with chains hanging down. Rusted. There were remnants of fabric, scraps of shirts, gloves, and some cloth that smelled faintly of bleach and something else, something I didn't want to identify. I wanted to scream, to run, but the space itself felt alive, like it was watching us. Layla stepped closer, and something made me grab her arm. There was a sense, a weight pressing down. We didn't need to see a person to know someone or something had been held here. That voice, that desperate knocking, all the pieces clicked together. I turned to report it again to the nearest staff member. But by the time I reached the front desk, the door was closed. Not only that, the handle was locked, as if the room had been sealed behind us immediately after we looked inside. My mind raced. We weren't sure what to do. Should we call the police at port? Inform the captain? And yet, every staff member we asked shrugged it off. Maintenance storage. Nothing unusual. No one had entered the room while we were there. The door, they insisted, had always been locked. We left the ship that evening feeling drained, uneasy, and on edge. Even as the city lights approached, the salty breeze doing nothing to calm us, my imagination kept turning back to that tiny metal room. That woman, her voice whispering for help, the restraints, the scattered IDs. The scariest part? We weren't the only ones who had heard it. Later, talking to a few other passengers we'd befriended on the cruise, one of them mentioned a rumor. Crews who had worked on the ship reported hearing knocks late at night, and staff who asked too many questions were always reassigned or vanished for weeks. I keep thinking about the IDs, about the voices, about the door. Some nights, I wake up sweating, hearing faint taps echoing somewhere just out of reach. The kind of sound that presses in your ears, familiar yet impossible to locate. And somewhere, deep inside, I know that door still exists. Locked again, hidden behind a sign that says staff only, holding secrets that the world refuses to acknowledge. I haven't gone on another cruise since. I can't, and I don't think I ever will. But every time I see a metal door, every time I hear soft knocking in the night, I swear I can hear her whispering, "Help me." I never thought a simple camping trip would leave me questioning reality, but I guess that's what fear does. It stretches the edges of your mind until nothing feels real anymore. My name is Hina, and last October, my friends Sarah, Aisha, Layla, and I decided to get out of the city, escape the screens, the traffic, the deadlines, and spend a weekend deep in Pinewood Forest. The drive there was scenic, crisp autumn air filling the car, leaves crunching beneath our tires as the forest thickened. We laughed, sang along to music, and fantasized about ghost stories we'd tell around the campfire later. The campsite itself was remote, just a small clearing in the trees, fire pit in the middle, a few picnic tables scattered around. No one else was nearby, which we thought was perfect. Peaceful. Solitude. We set up our tents, cooked a modest dinner over the fire, and let the darkness settle over the trees. The forest smelled rich and earthy, wet leaves and pine resin mixing in the cool night air. Everything was normal, perfectly normal, until midnight. We were dozing in our sleeping bags when a scream tore through the silence. It was raw, guttural, and not close enough to be our imagination. It echoed between the trees, bouncing off the trunks, carrying a terror I can't describe. "What the hell?" Sarah hissed, sitting up and clutching her blanket. That sounded like a woman," Aisha said, her voice shaking. Before we could even process it, a figure burst through the edge of the clearing. Barefoot, hair matted, blood streaked across her arms and legs. She was running as if the forest itself was chasing her, her eyes wide with panic. "Help me, please!" she screamed, stumbling, then regaining speed. Instinct took over. We grabbed our flashlights and bolted after her, weaving between the trees, shouting, "Wait, we'll help you!" But as soon as we stepped deeper into the forest, the clearing behind her was empty. No footprints in the mud, no sound of leaves being crushed, Nothing. Only silence. Where did she go? Layla whispered, breathless. We pressed on, but it was as if the woods had swallowed her whole. No branches snagged her clothing, no footprints, no trace. My stomach churned. Something about the way she vanished didn't make sense. Minutes later, she ran past again. Same bare feet, same blood streaks, same frantic eyes, same pleading words. Help me, please. It was impossible. Exactly the same, like a recording playing live. I stared, frozen, flashlight shaking in my grip. She's looping, I whispered, unable to look away. Aisha nodded, her face pale. Like we're in a nightmare. We tried to follow again, but every step we took, the woman seemed to appear in the same direction. Running past, screaming, her eyes always locked straight ahead, never blinking. Her panic was tangible, a cold wind brushing past us with every pass, her cries echoing in our chest. Finally, we retreated to the campsite, hearts hammering, legs trembling. The forest seemed heavier, oppressive, as though the trees themselves were leaning in to watch. We huddled together in the circle of our tents, listening to the sounds that had become unbearable. Snapping twigs, distant animal cries, the soft thump of her bare feet hitting the forest floor. We decided to pack and leave. We ran to our car, shoved our bags inside, and I turned the key. Nothing. The engine turned over for a moment, then died. I tried again. Dead. No click, no whir, nothing. It's not starting, I said, voice tight with panic. The forest seemed to grin in response. And then she appeared again, running past the edge of our campsite, just beyond the firelight. Each time, she came closer, like the loop was accelerating. Her bloodied legs, her wild eyes, her desperate, trembling hands reaching for help. We shouted, waved our arms, flashed our lights. But every pass, she never acknowledged us. Not a glance, not a change in pace. Only forward motion, urgency, terror. The fifth time, she passed so close that I could see the detail. The mud caked under her nails, the raw scratches along her arms, the flicker of something almost human, almost pleading for recognition, but not quite. Her mouth moved, words repeating, endless. Help me, help me, help me. I ran to the edge of the clearing, shaking my flashlight toward her. We'll help you. Stop. The air shifted. For a moment, I could swear the forest held its breath. And then she vanished, like mist, like smoke rolling off the treetops. My friends and I stood there, trembling, staring into the darkness, trying to convince ourselves it was a hallucination, a shared panic reaction to the isolation and the screaming. But that would have been impossible. No one else could have reacted in the same way, seen the same woman in the same loop. We circled the campsite, checking our tents, the car, the edges of the clearing. Nothing. The forest returned to normal, or at least what passed for normal in that cursed place. The sun began to rise, pale light slicing through the trees. The forest seemed innocent again, peaceful, the screams and terror of the night fading like a bad dream. But none of us slept. None of us spoke. Every crack of a branch or rustle of leaves made us jump. To this day, I have no explanation. That woman, that loop, it wasn't human. And every time I close my eyes at night, I see her sprinting through the trees, just beyond the reach of light, her terrified expression etched into my memory. The way she runs, over and over, like a nightmare trapped in a perfect cycle. We eventually drove away in another car, rented at the nearest town. The campsite remained, waiting. The trees still sway, the forest still stretches its limbs, and somewhere deep inside, she runs. Forever. I can't shake the image. The loop, the sound of her pleading echoing in my head. And I know that if you camp in those woods, if you listen too closely in the night, she will come for you too. Not once, not twice, but endlessly until you're trapped in her loop just like we were. I've always been skeptical of the kind of stories that make your skin crawl before you even step into a place. Haunted hotels, ghostly whispers, mysterious disappearances. They were fun to read about, but I never imagined I'd experience one firsthand. My name is Hina, and last September, my friends Sarah, Layla, and Aisha and I booked a weekend stay at the Magnolia Inn. It was supposed to be a cozy getaway. Just the four of us, a little wine, and some downtime away from our hectic city lives. The hotel looked charming enough when we arrived. A classic brick facade, polished brass handles, warm lighting spilling from the lobby. The receptionist was friendly, offering us a map of the area and directions to the local boardwalk. We dropped our bags in our room, 201, on the second floor, and immediately felt the ease of being somewhere quiet, isolated from the world outside. The first night passed without incident. We drank wine, watched old movies on the tiny TV, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. But on the second night, just after midnight, everything changed. It started with a faint thumping. At first, we assumed it was the hotel settling. Wooden floors expand and contract, right? But the thumps grew louder, more deliberate, like furniture being dragged across a room. Then came the sobbing, a low, ragged, despairing sound that made my chest tighten. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, freezing mid-sip of her wine. We pressed our ears to the wall. The sounds were unmistakable. Muffled screams, soft thuds, the scrape of chair legs on the floor, punctuated by intermittent cries. It was all coming from the room next door. "I'm calling the front desk," I said, grabbing my phone. The receptionist's voice was almost dismissive when I explained. "Room 202? That room hasn't been booked in months," she said. "No one is staying there. Are you sure you're not imagining things?" I laughed nervously, but the laugh died in my throat. The sounds returned almost immediately, louder this time, like someone had become aware we were listening. The sobbing rose to a high wail, furniture scraping across the floor. A scream so raw it made my stomach turn. We tried ignoring it. We told ourselves it was a prank, a figment of our imagination, maybe a maintenance worker moving furniture. But the sounds didn't stop, and the more we listened, the more impossible it seemed to be anything mundane. That night, none of us slept. The noises came and went in erratic bursts. We could hear the dragging of what sounded like a heavy desk across the carpet, the scraping of shoes, a door slamming, and whispers so soft we couldn't understand the words. On the third night, we decided to record it. We set our phone on the nightstand, recording the room while we pretended to sleep, hoping to capture evidence. Every time we pressed record, the sounds intensified, like they knew they were being documented. Around 2:47 a.m., the audio picked up something different. A whisper, so soft and brittle it made the hair on my arms stand on end. "They won't let me leave." We froze. The room fell completely silent after that. I barely breathed. My friends exchanged panicked glances, each of us realizing we had just heard something that wasn't just a noise. It was a voice, a conscious, pleading voice. The next morning, still shaking, we played the recording for the front desk. The manager, a gray-haired man who usually smiled warmly at every guest, went pale the moment he heard the whisper. He took the phone from me with trembling hands. That was, he stammered, struggling for words. That was the last sentence spoken by a woman who went missing from this hotel. 5 years ago, room 202. I felt my knees weaken. "What do you mean? You just told us the room hasn't been booked." The manager swallowed hard. "It hasn't been booked because it's supposed to be closed. Ever since she disappeared, we've kept it locked. Staff are told not to enter. The room is haunted, I suppose. I didn't think anyone would hear her. No one has in years." We couldn't speak. I felt nausea rising in my throat. The panic, the fear, it pressed against my chest like a physical weight. "That woman," he continued, voice low, almost reverent, "was staying here alone. She checked in late one night, never came out. Her belongings were found exactly as she left them. Books on the nightstand, her suitcase unpacked. Nothing else. And that sentence, 'They won't let me leave.' It was her last audible words, caught by security cameras that night. I glanced at my friends. Their faces mirrored my terror, pale and drawn. "That's impossible," Aisha whispered. We were hearing it live. Right now. How can it be? The same. The manager shook his head. I don't know, but you're lucky or perhaps unlucky to hear it. No guest has ever reported it for years. Some say she's trapped in that room, reliving her last hours, her fear, her struggle, endlessly. We left the hotel later that day, our weekend ruined, hearts still pounding from the memory of that night. Even as we drove away, I couldn't shake the whispers in my head, the scraping sounds, the cold dread that had settled over us. I've tried to tell myself it was coincidence, a trick of the mind, or some kind of elaborate prank. But I know what I heard. I know what we recorded. And every time I close my eyes, I hear her voice again, soft, pleading, impossible. They won't let me leave. I will never stay in a hotel alone again. I will never ignore the subtle knocks, the unexplained sobbing, or the locked doors marked staff only. And sometimes, in the dead of night, when the wind brushes against my window just so, I swear I can hear that whisper again, waiting for someone else to listen. The thought chills me more than the memory itself. What if she's still there, still trapped in that room, her voice looping endlessly, a warning to anyone who will hear it? We left the Magnolia Inn, but I can't leave it in my mind. I can't leave the sound of her last words echoing behind that locked door, suspended in time, endlessly repeating her fear, her plea, her warning.